The morning sunlight spilled gently across the kitchen table as Emma poured fresh coffee into two mismatched mugs. Outside the window, the garden was alive with color, ripe tomatoes hanging from tangled vines, basil leaves catching the breeze. Michael, still in his old college t-shirt, came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, planting a soft kiss on her neck. For a moment, everything felt perfect. The world was quiet, the coffee was warm, and the only thing that mattered was the man she loved standing in her arms. "Good morning, beautiful," Michael whispered, smiling in that way that made her heart flutter even after 5 years of marriage. Emma laughed. "Good morning, sleepyhead. I thought you'd never get out of bed." Michael grinned and let her go, grabbing his mug and stepping out into the small backyard to check on his beloved vegetable patch. Emma watched him through the window, how careful he was with the plants, how patient. It was just one of the little things she loved about him. To anyone looking in, their life was the definition of ordinary happiness. Two people who found joy in simple routines, who still made each other smile every single day. But peace, as Emma would soon learn, can be a very fragile thing. Sometimes, just beneath the surface, a storm is already gathering. Today, though, Emma only felt gratitude for this gentle, golden morning. She didn't know that her younger sister, Sophia, energetic, ambitious, always a little bit mysterious, was about to call with news that would change everything. But even on mornings like this, there were little shadows that Emma tried not to notice. Michael, usually so steady, had started drifting off during conversations. Sometimes, while she spoke, he would stare out the window, his gaze lost somewhere far away. His hands, always so gentle and sure, would occasionally tremble as he lifted his coffee cup, a tiny shake that almost no one else would see. Emma noticed these things, but she told herself not to worry. Maybe it was just stress from work, she thought. The school year had been hard on everyone, especially on counselors like Michael. Besides, every marriage has its silent moments, right? Sometimes, in the quiet between their words, Emma caught a flicker of sadness in Michael's eyes. She wondered if he was holding on to something, a worry, a memory, but when she reached for his hand, he would squeeze it, smile, and say, "I'm fine, really." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the life they'd built together was unbreakable. So Emma pushed the doubts aside, choosing instead to hold on to the peace of the present, unaware that a storm was already brewing just out of sight. The shrill ring of Emma's phone broke the late morning quiet. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, glanced at the screen, and grinned. "Sophia, hey, Soph," Emma answered, voice bright. But Sophia's words tumbled out in a breathless rush, her excitement barely contained. "Emma, you have to sit down for this. Are you sitting?" Emma laughed, settling at the kitchen table. "I'm sitting. What's going on?" There was a pause, a shaky, happy sort of silence. Then Sophia blurted out, "I'm engaged. David proposed last night. I said yes." For a moment, the world went silent. Then Emma squealed, the joy in her voice filling the whole kitchen. "Oh my God, Sophia! Congratulations! Tell me everything!" Sophia's laughter was infectious, relief and happiness mixing in every word. She started describing David, the proposal, the way he looked at her, his gentle words. It was all a whirlwind, and Emma listened, feeling her sister's joy as if it were her own. When Michael came in coffee in hand, Emma mouthed excitedly, "Sophia's getting married!" Michael's eyes widened and a genuine smile lit up his face. The rest of the day was a blur of excitement. Phone calls with family, plans for a dinner to introduce David to everyone, messages flying back and forth. Emma and Michael spent the evening planning the perfect menu, ironing their best clothes, and imagining what it would be like to finally meet the man who'd captured Sophia's heart. For Emma, this was another piece of happiness added to her life, a moment to celebrate, a reason to draw her loved ones even closer. If only she could have known how much this dinner would change everything. The restaurant glowed with soft golden light, every table dressed in white linens and polished glassware. Emma felt her heart race as she walked in with Michael, her hand finding his for reassurance. This was supposed to be a celebration, an evening of laughter, toasting, and new beginnings. At the center of the private dining room, Sophia was already waiting, radiant in a dress Emma had never seen before. Beside her stood David, tall and impossibly composed, the kind of man who seemed to belong on the cover of a magazine. His handshake was firm, his smile perfect, and his words so kind it was almost disarming. All eyes were on David as he charmed the room, telling stories about his work, dropping just the right amount of humor, complimenting Sophia's parents. He listened, he laughed, he even remembered Emma's favorite author. But then, Michael. He stood just inside the doorway, his body stiff, eyes fixed on David. Emma saw the color drain from Michael's face as if he'd seen a ghost. For a long moment, he couldn't seem to move or speak. Sophia noticed and frowned. "Michael, are you all right?" Michael forced a smile, weak, brittle. "I'm fine, just a little lightheaded. I might step outside for a moment." The words hung in the air, awkward and sudden. Conversation stumbled. Even David seemed to sense the change, glancing at Michael with a look Emma couldn't read. Emma felt her stomach twist. She tried to cover laughing it off, but the room was colder now, tense with questions no one dared to ask. As Michael slipped away, Emma watched him go, her heart pounding. What just happened? Why did her husband, the man she trusted most, look so shaken by her sister's fiancé? No one at the table said a word about it, but beneath the small talk, everyone felt the shift, the first tiny crack in what was supposed to be a perfect night. Emma's heart was racing as she watched Michael disappear into the hallway. She barely noticed the conversation at the table fading into background noise. The only thing she could focus on was the panic in her husband's eyes. Without a word, Emma slipped away from the table, her steps quick and silent on the plush carpet. She spotted Michael standing just outside the restaurant near the parking lot, shoulders hunched, hands trembling as he tried to catch his breath. "Michael," she called softly. He didn't turn at first. Emma moved closer, gently touching his arm. She had never seen him like this, not even during the hardest years of their marriage. His face was pale, his eyes wide and haunted, like he'd seen something he could never unsee. "Talk to me," she whispered. "Please, what's going on?" For a long moment, Michael said nothing. His jaw clenched, his breathing was shallow. Emma squeezed his hand, her own voice shaking. "You're scaring me, Michael." Finally, he looked at her, truly looked at her. There was raw fear there, mixed with something deeper. Guilt, maybe, or regret. "I can't do this, Emma," he muttered. "Not here, not now." Emma shook her head, desperate. "Do what? What happened in there? You looked like you'd seen a ghost." Michael closed his eyes. "Maybe I did." The words sent a chill down Emma's spine. In that moment, she realized this wasn't just nerves or stress. This was something bigger, something that had been buried for years, something that was about to break them both wide open. Emma waited, breathless, as Michael seemed to fight an invisible battle within himself. The silence between them felt thick, suffocating. Finally, Michael spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. "There's something I've never told you, Emma. Something I tried to bury." Emma's hands tightened around his arm. "What is it?" He stared at the ground, words trembling on his lips. "Before I met you, I was married. Her name was Sarah." Emma's heart skipped. This was something she'd never heard, not once in all their years together. She was She was the love of my life, Michael continued, tears gathering in his eyes. But she struggled with depression. I tried to help, but it wasn't enough. One winter, she took her own life. Emma's world tilted. For a moment, she couldn't even speak. The weight of Michael's pain was suddenly clear. Every shadow she'd ignored, every moment of distance now made sense. But there's more. Michael's voice broke. There's more. Michael's voice broke. Sarah had a younger brother, David. Emma's breath caught. David? As in Sophia's David? Michael nodded miserably. Yes, that's him. David Harrison. He blamed me for Sarah's death. He said I didn't love her enough. I didn't protect her. Michael's hands shook as he finally met Emma's eyes. Emma, he didn't come into Sophia's life by chance. He's here to get revenge on me. He wants me to suffer the way he suffered. Emma took a shaky step back, her mind reeling. The man her sister loved was here to destroy their family from the inside out. Tears streamed down Michael's face. I'm so sorry. I never wanted this. I never wanted my past to ruin your life or Sophia's. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The secrets, the guilt, the heartbreak, they all came crashing down, leaving Emma numb and Michael utterly broken. In that cold night air, their world had shifted forever. Just as Emma tried to steady her breath, Michael's phone buzzed sharp and insistent. He glanced down, expecting a message from Sophia or one of her parents, but what he saw instead made his hands go cold. It was from David. The message was short, but its threat was crystal clear. Michael, meet me tonight at 8 p.m. in City Park. Come alone. If you don't, I'll tell Sophia everything. Every last secret. For a moment, Michael couldn't move. Emma leaned in, reading the words over his shoulder. She felt her blood run cold. Is he serious? She whispered. Michael's voice shook. Yes, he means every word. Emma stared at her husband, fear clawing up her spine. If you go, you'll be walking right into his trap. But if you don't? Michael nodded, voice barely above a whisper. He'll ruin Sophia's life. He'll rip our family apart. The air felt heavy, time suddenly running out. The secret that had haunted Michael for years was about to burst into the open one way or another, and now the fate of two families rested on what Michael would do next. Michael's hands shook as he started the car. Emma jumped in beside him, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely think. They tore out of the parking lot, the headlights slicing through the night street lights, blurring past as they sped toward Sophia's apartment. We have to warn her, Emma whispered, clutching her phone, before David gets to her, before he does something we can't undo. Michael nodded, sweat trickling down his temple. His knuckles turned white around the steering wheel. If only the police would help, he muttered. They'd already tried. Just minutes ago, standing in the cold, fluorescent-lit lobby of the local police station, Michael had shown the officer David's threatening message. The cop barely looked up from his paperwork. Sounds like a family dispute, sir. Unless there's been a crime, there's not much we can do. If you feel threatened, call us again. Michael had pleaded. Emma's voice had cracked with desperation. But all they got was bureaucracy and cold indifference. Now, as the car hurtled through empty streets, Emma's mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Every red light felt like an eternity. Michael's breathing was ragged, and in the reflection of the dashboard lights, Emma could see fear and guilt fighting for control in his eyes. Finally, Sophia's building came into view. Michael slammed the brakes. The two of them sprinted inside, up the stairs, every second feeling like the last chance to save everything they loved. The hallway outside Sophia's apartment was eerily quiet as Emma and Michael banged on the door. Sophia opened it, eyes wide with confusion and concern. Emma, Michael, What's going on?" But before Emma could answer, the lock turned behind them, a key in the door. David stepped in, bouquet in hand, freezing when he saw the panic on their faces. The room crackled with tension. Emma swallowed hard. "Sophia, you need to sit down. There's something you have to know." Sophia looked from Emma to Michael, then at David. "What is happening?" Michael's voice trembled. "David isn't who you think he is. He's not just your fiancé. He's Sarah's brother, my first wife. He's here for revenge." Sophia's face drained of color. David's jaw clenched. For a moment, no one breathed. "Revenge?" Sophia whispered. "What are you talking about?" David's voice turned cold, broken. "My sister died because of him, because he left her alone when she needed him most. He gets to have a new life while I lost my family." Michael shook his head, tears in his eyes. "You're wrong, David. I never stopped loving Sarah. I've lived with guilt every single day." Emma stepped between them, voice breaking. "David, please, don't destroy Sophia just to hurt Michael. None of this will bring Sarah back." David's hands shook. "You don't know what it's like to lose someone and have everyone move on like she never mattered." Sophia finally found her voice through tears. "I loved you, David, but I won't be a pawn in your revenge. If you ever cared about me, let this end here." The room fell silent, broken only by ragged breathing and muffled sobs. For a long moment, they all stood on the edge, pain, blame, love, and the raw truth hanging heavy in the air. For a long, aching moment, Sophia stood frozen between the two men, David, the man she thought she'd spend her life with, and Michael, her brother-in-law, now shattered by old grief and guilt. She saw the rage in David's eyes, the sorrow in Michael's, and in that instant, she realized neither man could set her free from this pain. Only she could. Taking a shaky breath, Sophia stepped forward. Her voice, though trembling, was clear. "David, I understand your pain. I know you loved your sister deeply. But you can't use me to punish Michael. I refuse to be a weapon in your war." David's face twisted, grief and anger colliding. "You don't understand, Sophia. Sarah was my world." Tears streamed down Sophia's face, but she didn't look away. "I'm not your sister. I'm not a substitute for your loss. If you ever truly loved me, you have to let this go." She turned to Michael, her voice softer but firm. "And you have to stop letting guilt destroy you. Sarah's gone. We can't keep living for ghosts." For a moment, no one moved. Then, as if a dam had broken, David collapsed into sobs, the years of hatred and heartbreak pouring out. Sophia put her hand gently on his shoulder, not as a lover, but as someone who understood pain. "Let's stop hurting each other," she whispered. "Let's try to heal, all of us." In that quiet, the cycle of revenge finally cracked. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was the first step towards something better. The next few days felt like living in the ruins of a storm. Everything Sophia thought she knew about love had collapsed overnight. She ended her engagement to David not with anger, but with tears and a deep, aching sadness. "I hope you find peace," she whispered to him on their last night together, "but I can't carry your pain anymore." David left town soon after, seeking therapy, desperate to mend the wounds he'd let fester for so long. For the first time, he faced his grief not as a weapon, but as something he needed to heal. Michael and Emma sat together at the kitchen table every night, no longer hiding behind small talk or old routines. There were long, hard conversations about Sarah, about guilt, about what it meant to finally tell the whole truth. Emma's trust had been shaken, but in Michael's raw honesty, she saw the man she loved, flawed, broken, but real. They grieved together, not just for the past, but for what had nearly been lost. Sophia moved back in with her parents for a while, her world quieter, but her heart slowly mending. She began volunteering at a support group for people grieving loved ones, transforming pain into compassion for others. The connections between them all had changed, no longer perfect, but honest and open. It was the end of one story, but the fragile beginning of another. The house was quieter than it had ever been. Days passed in a kind of gentle silence. No big arguments, but no laughter either. Emma moved through her routine softly, Michael often lost in thought. Yet beneath the sadness, something was quietly changing. Acceptance was slowly replacing shock. One gray afternoon, Michael reached for his phone and dialed a number he'd avoided for months. "David," he said, voice trembling, "would you meet me at Sarah's grave?" David agreed. The next morning, under a sky heavy with clouds, the two men stood side by side among the headstones. The grass was damp and the air was thick with memories neither of them could put into words. Michael knelt first, placing a single white flower on Sarah's grave. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice cracking. "I should have done more. I should have saved you." David's hands shook. He stared at his sister's name carved in stone, anger melting into tears. "I blamed you for so long, Michael. But grief made me cruel. I miss her too." Michael looked at David, eyes full of regret and hope. "Can you forgive me?" David nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Maybe we can both start again." The two men hugged, awkward at first, but real. In that moment, forgiveness didn't erase the pain, but it made room for something new, the possibility of peace. Back home, Emma watched from the window as Michael returned, his shoulders lighter than before. For the first time in a long while, hope felt possible. Slowly, warmth began to return to their lives. The family wasn't the same as before, but in some ways it was stronger. Small dinners replaced big gatherings. Emma would cook her favorite soup, Michael would set the table, and Sophia, now living nearby, would bring a homemade dessert and stories from her new job at the community center. They laughed more often, even if the laughter was softer than before. The hard conversations didn't disappear, but the secrets did. Emma and Michael leaned on each other, no longer pretending that pain didn't exist, but choosing to face it together. Sophia started to find herself again. She took long walks, picked up her guitar, joined a book club, and slowly let her heart trust in the possibility of happiness. The betrayal and heartbreak had hurt her deeply, but she learned she was stronger than she thought. David, too, began to heal. Therapy helped him accept the past and let go of his anger. He found work in another city, started over, and learned to remember Sarah not only with sorrow, but with gratitude for the love she brought into his life. The family wasn't perfect, far from it, but the bonds between them now were built on truth and acceptance, not illusion. In their little house, light shone through the kitchen window again, and laughter, though cautious, filled the rooms. Hope, fragile and beautiful, had come home to stay. In the months that followed, winter settled over Ohio, blanketing the town in quiet white. Snowflakes drifted past the windows, and icy winds rattled the branches outside. But inside, Emma and Michael's little house, warmth glowed from every room. Family dinners became rituals of healing. Sometimes they spoke about Sarah, softly, honestly, without fear or anger. Other times they just sat together in silence, comforted by each other's presence. Emma looked around the dinner table one night, Michael's hand in hers, Sophia smiling softly as she poured tea, and laughter echoing in the corners of the kitchen. She realized that family was never about being perfect. It was about having the courage to face the hardest truths together, to forgive, and to keep loving, even when it hurt. Outside, snow kept falling, erasing old footprints and blanketing the world in a kind of gentle peace. Inside, the light was golden, and the warmth wasn't just from the fireplace. It was from the love they had chosen every single day. The story didn't end with a fairy tale, but with something even more precious: the promise that no matter how broken things may seem, forgiveness and truth can always lead a family back to hope. Life isn't about never making mistakes or having a flawless family. Real happiness comes from the courage to face our hardest truths, to forgive ourselves and others, and to keep loving, especially when it's difficult. Secrets and revenge only build walls, but honesty and forgiveness can rebuild bridges, even after the deepest hurt. When we dare to have honest conversations and choose compassion, we give ourselves and those we love a real chance to heal and begin again. If this story touched your heart, or if you believe in the power of honesty, forgiveness, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. At Whispers of Life, every week we share stories that remind us what truly matters: courage, family, and hope. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of inspiration or healing.